All right, it's our Wealth Wednesday here on Morning Mix. We are joined by certified financial planner Will Rogers to discuss unclaimed cash and property. Every year across the U.S., we have billions of dollars that go unclaimed. These assets are held by state and federal treasuries until their rightful owners are found.
And anyone who has lived or worked in the U.S. can check these financial repositories to see if any dollars are owed to them or a family member.
That's
Hey,
right.
Will. And hello, Baxter.
Right, it's there and it's easy to find them. I wish it was easy as saying, Baxter, go fetch my money.
Yeah,
but,
don't we?
but it's not much harder than that.
Okay, so how does this happen, and how can people get their money? That's what we want to know.
Right, and we'll talk because there's a whole variety of reasons that it happens. It's relatively unique circumstances that make it hard for the places to find those that have lost it. But then when they look at how to find it, there's online databases that it's pretty easy to start the process to get the money back.
And you see that sometimes the owners can't be tracked down. I actually tried this because you sent this information to us, and it was interesting. I've got some money that I was actually able to put a claim in that I didn't even know that was out there.
Yes. No, good for you. And I found the same thing for my son, William.
And I kind of wonder where all that came from. So what are some of the sources that generate all this unclaimed money?
So when you have things that are happening, often it's an incomplete financial transaction where you started something but it just ended before closing accounts or whatever. There's abandoned bank accounts is a real big one. Uncashed checks from previous employers where you got your last check and just never ended up depositing it. Sometimes there's different trustees that have not paid money out. And another common one that I see as a financial advisor is dividend payments that were paid out, but the person never received those dividend payments.
Okay.
So the question is, you just mentioned, Cliff, you went in and did this.
Right.
Why
Yeah.
wouldn't they contact the original owner?
So there's a handful of reasons for that. And the simplest one is the owner moved and didn't tell anybody. And so, if you've got a new address or a new phone number, new email address, and then let's complicate that a little bit more with a marriage. So then if you've got a change in location and change in name,
right,
it can make it hard to find somebody. Often a change in employment will have you moving somewhere else where your old employer didn't know how to track you down. And as they have these different events that come up, each person holding the money, like, for Ameriprise, for example, we've got a process that if we can't get in touch with somebody, we've got to follow a certain dormancy period and then report assets to the governing body of that person's residence state where they were when they lost the property. So it stacks up. So
let's talk this dormancy period. Is there like a set amount of time per place, or is it kind of just general?
It varies by state. So it varies by state. It's usually a few years. So it's not something where if you didn't talk to the bank this week, they're going to throw the property over.
Okay.
But if they've been trying to get in touch with somebody for a few years, what do?
All right, so we've talked about it. Let's talk about where you can find it. So where are some of the places that you can go to check out to see if you have some of this unclaimed cash or property?
The online resources, and there's some national ones where you got the National Association of Unclaimed Property Administrators. The federal government has got unclaimed money site, the usa.gov/unclaimed money. My personal favorites, though, is the local state ones. In Georgia, the Georgia Department of Revenue has their site, and South Carolina, the state treasurer has their site. And one thing I'll point out, South Carolina starts with a .gov, but they have contracted with a .com address, right, and it's legit. So as you're going through, make sure you start at the .gov. Always start at a .gov address, but South Carolina will take you through to a private contractor that is a .com address, but it is legit.
It did do that when I was doing that the other day too. But are there scam sites out there?
There's always scam sites, and so that's where being very careful, make sure you're reading the address. If you're doing just a Google search for unclaimed property, make sure you're going to a government site first. And that's the biggest thing that I can tell you is, and make sure it's like a real government site. Mm-hmm. They'll have some of these where they'll have websites that look very, very similar.
True.
But might not be it.
Good to know.
Well, something good to do, but at the same time, just be careful and double check some things.
I'll let you know how my claim turns out.
Well, and checking for not just yourself, but parents, even if they've deceased family members, there's a lot of that stuff out there, and it's easy to check, and you'd be surprised what you might find.
All right, great. Good stuff to know.
Thanks, Will. We appreciate it.
And Baxter will go fetch for you.
Oh, and okay, good. And Baxter looks good now that he's been all groomed up and everything. Appreciate it, Will. Thanks very much.
Glad to be here.